it's hard to enforce the trajectory of Bitcoin. A lot of people would want to see everyone self-custodying the Bitcoin, or all the fiat money dies and there's a hyper-Bitcoinized world where Bitcoin is also a payment system. Well, but people want that, and a lot of entrepreneurs are working on that, but you cannot enforce this trajectory. So Bitcoin as a payment, I see it less and less. We have had our fair share of experimentation with Lightning, and we had to learn that most people are not interested in using Lightning for doing payments. They're actually fine using their credit card, and they don't actually want to spend their Bitcoin. Some people then spend the Bitcoin and they buy it back. For the newcomer, the normal person on the street, this doesn't solve a problem. They have credit cards. Why would they need another sort of money? Where it does solve a problem is as a savings technology, because their money loses value every year. So they're super interested to use something like Bitcoin, which actually goes up in value and helps them save money.
Julian, welcome to Mad Bitcoin Podcast. For the audience that maybe still don't know you, you are a CEO and co-founder of the Relai, a simple, very user-friendly, self-custodial Bitcoin-only app. You also host Relai podcast, where you hosted guests like Michael Saylor, Natalie Brunel, Lynn Alden, just to name few. You are also present in the main Bitcoin events. This is where we met. You are a speaker. You're participating in the main panels. Can you share a bit about your journey from studying psychology and business administration to ending up as the co-founder of Relai? What sparked this passion for Bitcoin and for building this Bitcoin-only app? How did it start?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Aldona. It's a pleasure, and it was great meeting you in Prague. The BTC Prague was a very busy time. Indeed, it's a kind of a strange journey, right? You wouldn't expect a psychology student to end up building a fintech or Bitcoin business at all. And still to this day, I cannot read one line of these 200,000 plus lines of code that we have written or that the team has written. I'm not a techie, right? Usually you would expect a tech or fintech founder to be a tech guy and studied computer science or whatever. I have not. I actually didn't really know what I wanted to do until I finished my studies. So I had kind of, for the lack of alternatives, I had to go study. So I did the gymnasium, how it's called, in Switzerland for 3 years, which is basically, if you don't know what to do after school, you go there and it prepares you to go to university. So I did that, and I had to choose a focus. I had no idea what I want to focus on, but I was sure that I can't do like scientific stuff. I didn't feel like I'm intelligent enough for this, for like maths and physics and chemistry and biology, etc. And also languages, I was like, what am I going to do with languages? It's kind of boring. So what I did is I focused on psychology and philosophy, and that was cool because it was interesting to me. I was interested in human beings, right, and how they work, and talking and working with people, etc. was always fascinating me. But I was basically doing this just for the sake of interest, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do with it afterwards. And then it was about time to choose what I want to study, and I then just chose psychology again because it's still interesting to me, but I was already sure there that I don't want to end up as like a psychotherapist, right? I didn't want to go work all day with people that have psychological disorders, but still it was interesting to me. So I studied this for 3 years, and then I also had to choose a minor. And then the minor, I thought, okay, what is kind of easy, doesn't require too much, of my intelligence and of work. So business administration popped up. So I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool. So let's study psychology and business administration. And in my master's, I actually switched to business administration because I found it quite interesting as well. And then in my master's, when I did my MBA, it was really the one seminar that was most interesting to me was the one about entrepreneurship. But there was one only in 2 years, and like dozens of seminars and lectures I did. There was just one about entrepreneurship, but that was what I found really fascinating and what really my passion went into. So I decided to do an exchange semester the next year, still in my master's, in Silicon Valley, because I did some research and I found that, okay, Silicon Valley is the global hub of entrepreneurship. So I wanted to go there, and I studied there. And then when I finished my studies, I still didn't really know what to do. I didn't really want to work. I worked a little bit at banks, and I worked at management consulting companies while I was studying, and I did the army in Switzerland. You need to do more. I did more than 1 year of army service in Switzerland. But then, yeah, still didn't really know what to do. But when I looked at what my interests are, it was entrepreneurship and Bitcoin, because I found out about Bitcoin 10 years ago now, 2015, at the beginning of my studies. A friend of mine who was actually studying computer science showed me Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies when no one really knew about it, at least not in Switzerland in 2015. I find it fascinating for different reasons. And so when I finished my studies, I had offers to work in management consulting and like do a career there, maybe become partner at one point. But that was not, it would have been very well paid and like a nice career trajectory, but it was not my passion. It was not what fascinated me. So I was thinking, okay, what is it that fascinates me? Where is my passion? And there was these two things, Bitcoin and entrepreneurship. So for me, it was clear I kind of have to build a Bitcoin startup. And that's where the journey began. That was like 2018. When I decided not to take a very nice, well-paid consulting job, but to try to do my own thing. First, part-time, still working part-time as a consultant. And then in 2020, it became a full-time job when we actually released the first version of the Relai.app in summer 2020. Before, it was really, finding a co-founder, working on it on evenings and weekends, creating a pitch deck, participating in hackathons and startup challenges, and do networking with potential advisors and investors, and learn everything about the startup ecosystem and fundraising and how to build a product and technology, of course, is everything. And so then step by step, out of a hobby, we created a project. We went live with the app. We got first users, and then we actually fundraised 300K from angel investors. So out of the project became a company. And that was all in 2020. And then 21, we raised more money and built a team around it and onboarded more users. And there was a referral program. So we grew more very fast. And then basically one step led to the other. And now it's kind of a growth story. Still, it feels like still the very beginning, but we're already on the market for 5 years now, and have onboarded more than 100,000 people onto Bitcoin through our app, and raised around 20 million in venture capital and built a team of around 50 people. And all we do is trying to educate and onboard people in Europe to Bitcoin.
It's amazing. It's amazing, John. You know that I'm even the fan of yours. I've been following you on LinkedIn and X for a long, long time now. When I've been watching, all this, as you said, the funds that you are raising, it's like how much until now? Like 20 million for the
Yeah, roughly
startup?
20 million.
For the startup that is like only 5 years old, with the co-founder that didn't even have 30 years, weren't even 30 years old.
Yeah, I was
If you
27,
could
yeah.
tell us how do you do that? What's like the path for our audience? What's the path to be so successful? I know it must be like very tough. You were building the Bitcoin, so only convince someone about Bitcoin that is something worth investing in. It's already difficult. And
Mm-hmm.
then raising the money from such a big venture capital like Egodev Capital, I think it's your main investor. How do you do it? What's the path? What are the steps that you must do? I'm thinking about all the young people here in Spain, some of them building their own startups. I know that are struggling a lot. I've been in some pitches and I've been watching and I know how hard it is. They're all doing great job and there's only one winner. So if you could just give us a little bit more light on it, how it happened, like to raise the rest one was 12 million, I guess,
The last one
last
was
year.
12 million. Yeah.
Amazing.
I mean, I think starting at the beginning, the principles, what was really important, what are success factors of a founder for making it? I think from my like limited experience now, right? So I'm only a founder for 5 years. I'm still young, 32 now.
Yeah.
But what is really important is passion. What's really important is tenacity, like really sticking to it, like never give up, and then learning as fast, just learning faster than others. because you have no clue when you start. You have no clue because it is a new concept usually, right? You're not just copy pasting something that will not make you successful. You need to build something new. And so if it's new, well, there's not a lot of knowledge. There's no path. There's no clear step-by-step guidance. You just need to learn a lot. So you get into a new industry, you're helping to build a new industry. You just need to learn faster than your competitors every day. And I didn't know anything about how to build a startup, how to create a company, how to find a co-founder, how to build a product that people like and want to refer to others, about a business plan, business model, to go to market strategies, you name it, about financing, fundraising, about regulatory compliance topics, everything that is now so important to the success of Relai and other companies as well. I had no clue about anything. I didn't know what a venture fund is. Highlight that we have raised 20 million US dollars in quite a short time with dozens of different investors, some of them big VCs, some of them family offices, some of them other financial companies or a lot of angel investors as well. I had no clue what any of this is 5-6 years ago. I had no clue what a venture fund is, what an angel investor is, what fundraising is, how to do this. I just had to learn it very, very quickly. So really it's about if you have the passion for something, and I have the passion for Bitcoin now for 10 years and it only grows more and more. The more I understand, the more time I spend with it, the more passion grows. That's what you need. Otherwise you will give up. Sooner or later, every day you need to get up and like, wow, this is cool. I want to learn more about this. This is so exciting. I want to build this. I want to help. And then tenacity is, just never give up. There are so many hard times where, let's say, ordinary people would just give up. They just stop because it's too hard. It's very painful often. It's like, it's like bipolar thing. One day is like, yeah, everything's great, party. And then the other day, fuck, we're done.
Yeah.
But so it's a lot of up and downs, and you need to kind of have the resilience to stomach this. And then you just need to learn. I need to learn so many new things every day.
Mm-hmm.
I switch roles. Still now we're 50 people. I switch roles all the time. Middle of last year, I was mostly fundraising, and then end of last year, I was the head of support, customer support, because this really didn't go well. We had like 50% customer satisfaction rate from people that had interactions with support. So that was not good. So I went in there and learned everything about customer support. How can we use AI? How can we hire the best people for customer support? How can we improve processes and optimize things and make people happier? Now we have more than 80% customer satisfaction, which is great. And then beginning of this year, I was the head of Relai Private and Business because I saw a lot of potential there, but there was a lot to fix. We didn't really have a product. Now we have a web app for private and business clients. We've onboarded hundreds of both private and business clients that invest more than 100K each into Bitcoin. And also there we had to work a lot on processes, on structures, on tools, hiring great people. We now have promoted a great head of private and business internally. So what I'm now working on is the product mainly. I go into product development, product management, and they're expanding the team, improving the processes and everything so we can build features and fix bugs faster and better and make the good product that we now have a great product. And so I need to learn all this all the time. Every day I need to learn new things. And I think that's the success factors also of other more successful entrepreneurs. You name it, Elon Musk or whatever. He learns new things every day. He just learns things faster than his competitors, and then makes sure he gathers the right people, hires the great talent around him to capitalize on the learnings faster than others, and so you can be ahead of the curve and be the best. So yeah, I hope that helps. But I think everything comes kind of down to these three principles that are big success factors. And of course, there's a lot of luck as well, timing and luck, which hard to influence, and was kind of in favor for us because 5 years ago, starting a Bitcoin company was easier than now, and there was less competition. Now it's very competitive, and it's very hard from a regulatory point of view.
You're very humble. I think behind all the luck, there's a lot of work, as you said, and a lot of passion. So it's timing, of course. It's being at the right place at the right time. But I think you have to be prepared. Yes. so that, being at the right place at the right time, you've got everything, already worked out, your attitude, your passion, your knowledge to make it happen and to make it successful. Let's talk about some
Well,
more KPIs. I think they are really remarkable. You said that you are having how many trading volume, like 1 billion now, and downloads of the app, 500,000. Are you
yeah,
already there?
more than 500,000. Yeah, more than 500,000. We're probably at like 550 thousand app downloads all over Europe, mostly Germany,
Hmm.
but also then Switzerland, Austria, so the German-speaking area mostly. Italy is an important market, France and Spain, and but all the other countries as well. More than 500,000 app downloads, more than 150,000 users have ever become active, so have ever, maybe sometimes only once, sometimes hundreds of times, bought Bitcoin with us. That's more than 150 people that we somehow onboarded to Bitcoin, right? And then trading volume is actually a very important one because that's where we make our revenue. So from a business perspective, that's the North Star metric, the most important KPI we look at. And there we hit a total of 1 billion like a month ago. Right when we celebrated our fifth birthday, actually, we hit this milestone, which is a very nice coincidence. So we had two things to celebrate. So after 5 years, 1 billion in Swiss francs and euro was invested into Bitcoin through our platform, which is quite amazing. And last year, there was a big growth, a 2 to 3x growth year over year. And last year it was almost 500,000,000, so 450 million that was invested into Bitcoin through Relai last year. And this year we're of course we're trying to beat it or even double it again.
Wow.
And so yeah, these are probably the most important kind of KPIs.
What about the Switzerland regulatory environment? I know that, you're not having Mika as we do have at the rest of Europe. Is it some kind of the obstacle for you to expand more in Europe? Have you already faced some kind of the difficulties that are making it a little bit slower that you would like it to be, the growth and expansion?
Yeah, exactly. That's a big topic, especially this year, because Mika came into effect in January 2025, and now the companies basically have a transition period of 18 months until summer next year to get a Mika license, and we're working very hard on that. We started very early as well. We started actually beginning of last year, so we are now on it for like 1.5 years already, trying to get the Mika license. It's very tough. Only very few companies have been granted, and these are all very big companies. But we are quite confident that in Q3 this year we will get the Mika license finally. But yeah, if you look back 5 years when we started, Switzerland was indeed, as you said, because Switzerland is not in the EU, right? So we have different regulatory frameworks, and Switzerland makes it easier in general to start a company, especially in the financial services or fintech industry, and also the Bitcoin crypto industry. So it was easy to get set up and get to market. And it's relatively easy to get this license that we needed. We did get it in 2021, which is basically just a broker license. You can not even a license. You just need to be a member of a self-regulatory organization that is indirectly supervised by FINMA. So you can do the exchange between different assets like fiat currencies and Bitcoin. So we never hold Bitcoin on behalf of our customers. That's why it's a very light setup, and it was relatively easy to get this quote unquote license to be able to do our business. And then there was even a no KYC framework in place. So we, until end of last year, even October last year, we were able to offer buying and selling up to 1K per day and 100K per year without any registration verification whatsoever. So this was, of course, very nice. And this was not passporting, but it was like on a reverse solicitation framework. So it means we couldn't do active customer acquisition in EU countries, but we were allowed to, if people find out about us, like passively onboard customers to this. That's why
All right.
this was one of the reasons why we also grew so fast and why timing was so important, because this window is now closed, right? So they
Yeah.
closed it completely. The Swiss regulators, because they had pressure from the EU regulators where this was never possible. So this window is closed. If you start something like Relai now, you don't have this benefit. You can't start like that with like no KYC, right? Now we have to do full KYC for every client, even if he or she just wants to invest $50, we need to do full KYC. And that's very MiCA and EU driven. And so we also had to adapt how our company setup looks like. Now, actually, we have a Swiss holding company, a Swiss operational company that has the Swiss license and is working on the Swiss market. And we have a French company, so an EU company, which is now getting licensed with the French regulator. So as said, we are very confident that still this year in Q3, we will get the French license, which will very quickly then also transform into a MiCA license. And so we will get active access to all the EU markets, all the EU countries, because this will be passporting. This license will be passporting.
All right.
So we then finally can do through this French entity customer acquisition, active customer acquisition in all these countries, which means we can do paid advertising, we can work with all the influencers, we can sponsor all the events and conferences and all sorts of things that we cannot do now. We cannot do anything. We cannot promote in any active soliciting way, our referral program, or just we cannot even do tweets that kind of are directed to specifically EU onboarding EU users, etc. We need to be really, really cautious about these things always, but especially this year since January, because MiCA is in effect. But and that's also why the growth is not as explosive anymore, of course, because these are our most important markets. We are like below 20% of our business is now Swiss. So more than 80% of our business coming from the EU, mostly Germany and other, as I said before, other countries. This whole regulatory development was very interesting to watch.
Yeah.
It was good. It was good timing. Good that we started early and we had this benefit. But now we had to massively invest in legal compliance teams in house, but external as well, and had to work on the company structure and really engaging closely with the regulators now. Yeah, it needs to become, for a B2C Bitcoin fintech company as we are, it needs to be one of your core competencies, this whole regulatory legal compliance topic. So we see our three core competencies basically in the products, great user-friendly experience for buying Bitcoin, marketing and branding, where I think we're actually pretty good at. And then whether we want it or not, regulatory legal compliance is just, we have built a whole team around this and a network of advisors and service providers, etc. Because this is so important. It's the cost of doing business.
Yeah, but there are like two sides of the coin. The fact that there are so many other companies that are struggling to get MiCA and they cannot do anything more as you are now, it makes it more easy for you to not have too much competition.
Yeah,
Yeah,
true.
on the one side. On the other side, I'm seeing, I'm observing you are like very creative within your own team because, I'm following everyone. I'm following Kai, I'm following Thomas, I'm following Raphael. So I'm following you, of course. So they're doing such a wonderful job, on the social media. So with the
Hmm.
newsletters, posting on a daily basis, such a very interesting things about Bitcoin. I'm learning a lot from them, I'm following all of them. So thank God we've got the social media because maybe even if we don't have this possibility to speak and to announce officially like the Bitcoin product until you've got MiCA, you still got like this other no
Hmm.
when you can get to your potential customers.
Bitcoin,
Yeah,
right? It's
yeah,
never about selling.
yeah,
Solicitation, it's not about acquiring customers. It's about, we talk about Bitcoin and we want to
yeah.
educate people about Bitcoin. And anyway, even independent of the regulation, yes, that's allowed, right? You can do that, which is great. But even outside of this, it's, I think, a very smart strategy for everyone who kind of wants to sell something in the Bitcoin industry to first just do education, because that's how you attract a followership, how you attract attention, and the money follows attention, right?
And loyalty, because if someone
Yeah,
likes,
loyal.
yeah, loyalty too.
Yeah.
Talking about education, I've seen one of your podcasts. You mentioned part of your life before setting up, founding Relay, when you were dedicated to the education regarding Bitcoin in a very formalized, very structured way. Can you tell us something more about it? I understand this is now a very useful tool for you because, as we say, we need to educate people to get them on board. And I understand also that being the non-custodial model makes it a little bit more for the newcomers to learn about this app. How you're managing this education to your new clients? How do you explain them what's the difference between what is custodial, what is not custodial, differences, similarities, more risk, less risk with one model or another?
Yeah, I think at the core of what we're doing is always simplicity, because it's very important to know who you're talking to and who is your target audience. And the target audience, I think for most Bitcoin companies, or for us specifically, because we're about onboarding newcomers to Bitcoin, your target audience has zero to not much knowledge about Bitcoin. It's like in Europe, 90% or even slightly more than 90% are not yet into Bitcoin. So they have very, very low amount of knowledge about Bitcoin. They have heard of it because Bitcoin is a very strong brand. They probably have heard of it. They maybe have written some headlines of articles about it, but that's it, right? And then you cannot start with how mining works, how the blockchain works, what fee is, and all that kind of stuff. You should definitely not start there. You need to start where they are at. You need to talk about the problem with fiat money and how this is a very nice digital solution because it's scarce, like digital gold, and it will and the last 10 years it went up and up and up in value. So very likely the next 10 years as well. So just you need to make it super simple. What we're doing often is we have ads, for example, or content about, your kebab. Why is your kebab now much more expensive than 10 years ago? Did you think about this? Did you hear about inflation? It's about inflation. Why are prices going up, but your salary actually is not going up? It's quite unfair. Well, if you save in Bitcoin and instead of saving in fiat that goes down and don't give you any interest, so actually you lose value every year. Well, with Bitcoin you gain money, you gain value every year, and then basically for you, your kebab will be less expensive in 10 years, etc. So these very easy to understand things that catches people in their daily lives and things and concepts they can understand. So simplicity is super important and at the core of how we do education. And then we try to find out what is it that people are interested in Bitcoin. What are the topics they find interesting, fascinating, maybe they don't understand? What are the most frequently asked questions, right? And then we create content around these. We create blog posts, videos, newsletters, press releases, podcasts, social media posts, of course, everything around these questions. The question can be, what is self-custodial versus custodial? And then in a simple way, with all these different formats, we explain this. Or why does Bitcoin use so much energy? Because that's what they read. The last 10 years, they read everywhere in the press that Bitcoin seems to use a lot of energy and is very bad for the environment. Well, okay, let's cover this topic, right? It's all about understanding your target audience and what is it that is interesting for them, what is it that blocks them from understanding Bitcoin, and then conveying this information in the most simple way possible.
Okay, you've described Bitcoin also as like financial freedom, emphasizing always the sovereignty for the user. As Bitcoin is gaining more and more traction with nation states like Salvador, now in the United States, how do you see its role evolving globally, apart from Europe, like globally? What is your vision on it, and how do you think Relay should fit in this new model? Are you planning to expand even more? I don't know, United States maybe one day, or South America?
Sure, yes. I mean, how I see Bitcoin evolving, I think that has nothing to do with my vision, because I can't really, I will not have any influence on how Bitcoin will evolve, right? So
But Bitcoin
Bitcoin
will
is evolving.
influence you.
Yeah. It will influence me and us as a business for sure. Yeah. And I have a vision kind of for the business Relay, but that really depends on how Bitcoin will. And it's not always, I think Bitcoin is independent, and people use Bitcoin how they want it. And so it's hard to kind of enforce the trajectory of Bitcoin. A lot of people would want, for example, to see everyone self-custodying the Bitcoin, right? or all the fiat money dies and there's a hyper Bitcoinized world where everyone also pay, like Bitcoin is also a payment system. Well, but people want that, and a lot of entrepreneurs are working on that, etc. That's great, but you cannot enforce this trajectory. So, for example, Bitcoin as a payments, I see it less and less. I see it actually, also Lightning, for example, we have had our fair share of experimentation with Lightning, and we had to learn that most people are not interested in using Lightning for doing payments. They're actually fine using their credit card, and they don't actually want to spend their Bitcoin. Some people then spend the Bitcoin and they buy it back, etc. But for the newcomer, the normal person on the street, this doesn't solve a problem. They have credit cards. Why would they? They need another way sort of money. Where it does solve a problem is as a savings technology, because their money loses value every year. So they're super interested to use something like Bitcoin, which actually goes up in value and helps them save money. How I observe in the last 10 years, how Bitcoin evolves and how I see it evolve in the next 10 years. It's not a vision, but it's like an assumption. I think we'll get more and more financialized, and it will be more ingrained into the traditional financial system that we now have, like Wall Street, institutional investors, ETFs. We already see that, right? I think in 10 years, every portfolio of in any sort of investors and every balance sheet of every sort of company or nation state, even, or central bank or whatever, there will be Bitcoin everywhere. Bitcoin will be the base layer of this whole financial system. There will be all sorts of financial products around it and services, some of them more on a decentralized technical level, but many of them also on the kind of old school financial layer still. That's what we're seeing now with the ETFs and with the Bitcoin treasury companies. This is just where it goes. There's much more activity on these topics and the kind of more Wall Street topics than, for example, of using Lightning to pay your coffee with Bitcoin. There's just much less activity for years now.
Although
And so
there is
that's
some
where I
attempt
see it
of
going.
PayPal, I have read ultimately that the PayPal will offer the payments. So there is some market, and I think it's also the question of evolving. Each and every type of money is always evolving. No, these are these three famous steps, like store of value, then the unit of account, and the use for payments.
Mm-hmm.
I completely agree with you. I would never spend my Bitcoin for coffee, but there are people that do that. And there are some that even Jack Dorsey was like arguing that if it's not converting in the future in the mean of payment, then it will die. And I
Mm-hmm.
think Jeff Wolf also said that it will die. So
Mm-hmm.
let's see how it evolves. You mentioned institutions. How do you see companies like Relai, because there are more exchanges in Europe that are doing something maybe not that similar as you do, because you are very focused like Bitcoin only, but there are other exchanges that are offering every coin that
Mm-hmm.
exists and Bitcoin. And now we are having, with Mika in Europe at least, and now in the United States also, those regulations that are allowing banks to custody and to transact with Bitcoin. How you think these startups, these new technological companies will be able to compete with these great institutions, or you think you can like exist in parallel? What's your vision from now in next 5-10 years? Do you see like a merge of those two worlds, or maybe you will just go always separately because the value that you're adding to your product is much better than the traditional institutions? How do you see it evolving?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I think if you want to make it as a startup, you need to be early and you need to be like first and fast, so that and really focused on a niche, on a category that is kind of overlooked by the big guys. And then you can, if you're then first in the right category and you find product market fit there and you're fast and you're growing and you become substantial, then at one point these big players will do it. Like in 5 to 10 years, every big, and that's what you're seeing now, all the banks, especially in Switzerland already, but also in other parts of Europe and the US and worldwide, the banks are coming, right? The big institutional investors are coming. The BlackRocks of the world are coming, but they were late to the game, right? And also PayPal, as you said before, etc. They're all coming, but they're quite late. And so there is still this window of opportunity we are now using it for 5 years. I think we have another 5 years until, so we had in total 10 years of a head start until the
Mhm.
big banks kind of finally, they all get it substantially. Then I think what's really important is to have this focus on this niche and stay true to that. And so, for example, that's why we focus only on Bitcoin only, self custody, and Swiss made. So this combination is still quite unique in the market, and we have found product market fit. So we are growing there, and we will just double down and beat this craft until we are sizable. And then what will happen is probably in the industry, because of the regulatory pressure, which makes it harder for smaller, as we discussed before, for smaller startups to compete. So there will be less and less new startups competition. So the startups that are there, that have made it to a certain scale, they keep growing. But then the very big guys, the banks, etc., they will start buying some of them. So there will be a consolidation between the successful ones buying the small ones, and then the very big ones will buy some remaining ones. In the end, I think there will be probably only a very few companies that really make it in an independent way and go all the way, go public, do an IPO, and become the Coinbase, for example. Coinbase is a
Mhm.
great example. They now acquire a lot of startups, and they have become so big now, IPO, etc. They will not be bought by Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan. Very likely, they will stay independent. But a lot of smaller companies, they will either be bought by Coinbase, so more like a Bitcoin crypto native company, or by the traditional finance counterparts, the big players. Only very few will make it independently. But of course, as a startup,
Mhm.
from talking from Relai perspective, we don't really have a plan for it. Like, we don't really care. We just do everything we can to grow, to pursue our mission, to expand. Ideally, in 10 years, the goal is to be a global company, be active in as many markets as possible with this proposal that we have, value proposition that we have, making Bitcoin in a self-custodial and Swiss-made way, high quality, friction, great user experience, very simple, make it accessible to as many people as possible in the world. And we try to grow this as much as possible, and ideally become a unicorn or a decacorn and go public. So become like the Bitcoin only version of Coinbase. But in the meantime, there will be
All right.
a lot of chaos, and there will be offers, there will be acquisition opportunities, etc. And maybe our shareholders, or we as a group of shareholders, we will decide to go with one of them.
Okay. And what about the famous, very hot topic lately, Bitcoin treasury companies? Is Relay having any plans to become one of them?
It's a very hot topic, right? I agree. Like I was in Las Vegas, and then right after was like 2 weeks later in BTC Prague, where we met, and it was all about
Yeah.
Bitcoin treasury companies here and there,
It
right?
was all about.
It's all about that, and I think it's truly fascinating. I think it's a trend that it will keep accelerating. I think for 2 quarters now already, Q1 and Q2 this year, the inflows of money that is being invested in Bitcoin have been higher for Bitcoin treasury companies than for ETFs. And ETFs are already growing very fast, like billions and billions are invested in ETFs, but more is invested in Bitcoin treasury companies. So it's a very significant trend that will continue. I think now we have more than 100 publicly traded companies that have Bitcoin on the balance sheet, or even pursue some sort of a Bitcoin treasury strategy. Next year it will be 1,000. It will be more than 1,000. But then the question is, as a startup like Relay, should we engage? If you look at these hundreds of publicly traded companies, they need to be publicly traded. So for the Bitcoin treasury playbook to work, you need to be a publicly traded company. And for Relay, that it's actually too small now to go public. It would deviate a lot of the focus and the attention to going public at a premature stage. So I think that would make a lot of sense also for the shareholders, right? And then you need to be realistic that like 80% probably of these publicly traded companies that pursue Bitcoin treasury companies are not very successful. There are some 10-20% that are super highly successful, like MicroStrategy, of course, or Strategy, MetaPlanet, Blockchain Group, now Capital B, Smarter Web in the UK. And so there are local geographic places that really are killing it. And if you look at what they do nothing else. They're super focused. They have a dedicated team of Bitcoiners and financial professionals that just go all in and pursue this playbook, Bitcoin Treasury playbook that Michael Saylor basically has shown the world the last 5 years. It does work, and I think it will get much bigger, and there's huge opportunity there. But you need to be a super highly focused company and just do that. And that's why I, for example, also like how what Jack Mallers did with, he's pursuing Strike, which mission is similar to ours, like making Bitcoin easily accessible, Bitcoin brokerage, now BTC-backed lending, which Relai has also released, etc. So financial services around Bitcoin make it super easy and accessible to people and onboard people to it. And then he separately has this company now, 21 Capital, which is with very high focus pursuing the Bitcoin treasury case. So I think that makes a lot of sense. That can be successful. To mix these things, like an operational business with its own vision and mission and its shareholder group and its equity story, to mix this with a Bitcoin treasury play, I don't think is successful. That's what we're seeing in a lot of these companies that have, like these 80% of the treasury companies that have not been successful. They try to kind of mix these two and be opportunistic about it, etc. That I think that won't work.
All right.
So we currently we have these discussions internally with our shareholders as well, but we are at a point where we don't think it would make sense for Relai at this point. We do have a Bitcoin treasury strategy, but it's just putting parts of our revenue and profits, etc., and part of our treasury as a long-term capital reserve into Bitcoin. But it's not this playbook, this Bitcoin treasury playbook of trying to raise as much money as you can, to buy as much Bitcoin as you can, to improve the BTC yield and the BTC per share ratio, etc. That's its own discipline, which we currently don't think it's worth engaging in. And others, like River, for example, Alex Leishman from River, he has also been public about this, tweeting on X that he sees it the same way. And I think Jack Mallers showed with his separation of the two companies that he sees it the same way as well. So I think this has been the right decision not to engage in that with Relai.
Yeah, you need laser focus, laser eyes just on it.
That's
Okay,
it.
so no Bitcoin treasury company for now, July, but you do have a very, very interesting product that you released very recently. The loans backed by Bitcoin. Yes, you made the alliance with one of the local banks. Can you tell us something more about it? I just had the podcast with Mark Moss, and he presented his vision on the perpetual debt racing with the Bitcoin as a collateral and how it can make you retired in 5 years. So I think this is something that may be very, very interested for the customers. Can please give us some more details around it?
100%. Yeah, this was very very nice. We did see organically, and this is often what happens. We do see demand organically from our thousands of users, and then we build a product for it, right? So we offer a service for it. So that's also how Relai Business started, by the way. We did receive many inflows of business accounts because businesses wanted to buy Bitcoin, but we didn't have a dedicated service for them. So we built Relai Business as its own department and onboarded hundreds of businesses now, and they are investing millions into Bitcoin for their balance sheet. And so the same for BTC-backed lending. We have now Relai private clients mostly, bigger clients that have bought several Bitcoin, sometimes dozens of Bitcoin with us, and now they're sometimes need liquidity, but of course they never want to sell their Bitcoin. So what they ask for is, can I take a loan? And I think this is going to be a very big. I agree with Mark there. It's going to be a very big one, because as Bitcoin is increasing in value, an average between 20 and 60% year over year, you don't want to sell this asset, but you need some liquidity. You're happy to pay up to 10% to get this liquidity because you're making at least 20 every year, right?
Yeah.
So that makes a lot of sense. And these smart investors that also have a lot of money, they have understood this. So they came to us and asked, look, can I take a loan Bitcoin? We wanted to find a very fast way on how to do this. From a regulatory point of view, it's very, very hard for a relatively small startup like us to build this ourselves. And we're already in all these licensing processes, etc. So we decided to link up, partner with a great Swiss Bitcoin-oriented, like crypto-native bank. It's the first Swiss crypto bank that was approved by FINMA. Those they were founded 2017 or 18, got the license in 2020 as well. So they're now very big. They're a unicorn. They have raised like more than 100 million, and they have 300 so employees, and they're a licensed bank in Switzerland. They're doing a great job, and they can offer this, right? So we partnered with them to offer our clients a great product. I think it's the best on the market with the best LTV, the most flexible terms, so you don't have a lockup period. You can just take out as much as you want up to a certain limit. When do you want? You can pay it back whenever you want. You can stop the credit line however flexible you want. And of course, the fees are also very, very competitive. The bank is called Signum, by the way. It's number one crypto bank service provider in Switzerland, and has been great so far. We did like one announcement, as we discussed before. We can't really do active advertising for
We are only
such product.
educating here. We're only educating.
Exactly.
Disclaimer.
Thank you for the disclaimer.
We're
This
educating.
will get me out of a lot of trouble. Thank you. But we already had, sorry, just to end this, we already had, despite not being able to do any marketing, etc., we already had dozens of clients that have successfully taken out a BTC-backed loan, and they're very happy with it. Again, to your point that you made earlier, I think long term this makes a lot of sense.
Is it only available in Switzerland, or is it available across all the countries where you already operate?
It's available for all Relai private clients, independent of location. But it's of course always subject to then different considerations. It's also that there are minimum amounts, and there are other considerations, of course, depending on maybe where you're at, how your setup looks like as a business or as an individual investors, etc. But is basically open to all the Relay private clients, or business clients.
Does it predict the liquidation of your Bitcoin in case that Bitcoin goes down to some kind of level, and then, for example, if LTV is too high, then very small variation, downside, may liquidate your Bitcoin. What is the LTV in this case, in the case of your loan product?
The LTV will be at 40. So 40%. So you have to over collateralize with 2.5x. And then, but if there's a soft margin call, which is great. There's not just a liquidation as with many other players. When the LTV would get close, Bitcoin price goes down, and you get to LTV like 60 or even 50, you get like soft margin calls. So you get notified to look either, payback or put more collateral, and then only after that, when it really goes to 40, that's where it's kind of forced liquidated.
That's great. That's great. Well, maybe one day we're gonna have the products that will not liquidate. In the United States, there is some attempt of doing the product that will adjust the interest rates on a monthly basis, and according to the ups or downs of Bitcoin, they will adjust the LTV, and they will adjust the interest rates that will be gathered from the client. So, for example, it's not the fixed rate like 10% or 15%, but it's like a variable, and variable according to the variability of Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin is going very down, so the 10 converts in, like, let's say 15% of the interest rate. And if it goes up, then it goes down the interest rate. So I think this is very interesting too, because in this case, you never lose Bitcoin and all parts wins. So you have to look at it. I will send you the link afterwards. So small adjustment to it.
I think this is very interesting, and that's one of the financial innovations, one of the many financial innovations that can be built on top of Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is such a unique thing. That's part of this financialization. Yeah.
Yes. We are still learning. Yes, it's so new that there are so many things that, like, in 10, 15 years will be like normal, which now we don't even imagine that can exist, Like the same that happened with electricity, the same happened with the cars. Yes. The same happened with the internet. Okay, we've got the internet. When I saw internet for the first time, I thought, oh, okay, it's just a digital newspaper. And okay. And now, you cannot imagine your life without the internet. So I think the same we're going to see with Bitcoin. We've got these Bitcoin treasury companies. We've got the Bitcoin collateralized products. And I think it's the very, very, very beginning of what we might see, hopefully. I'm very optimistic about Bitcoin, about how it will change our lives and the lives of everyone. Okay, thank you
Totally.
so much, Julian, for your time. Please tell us where we can find you. Of course, we can download the app on Apple, on Android, I
Yes.
imagine, and we can look for you where on LinkedIn or X, where else?
Yes, exactly. I'm on LinkedIn and X, and so is Relay. These are our two most important channels and biggest channels, I would say, where we put out most of the content. As you said before, every day. You can expect every day one or multiple posts about Bitcoin, and mostly they're quite educational and often also fun. So check it out, follow us. And then on our website as well is a very good summary of everything. We just released a new website, so go check it out. It's Relai.app. And there you can download the app, of course. You can interact with us. There's a support chatbot thing. You can ask any question about Bitcoin in general or Relay specifically, or we can help you if you have any issues or questions. And there are all the links to the different resources, social media, etc. We're also on many other social media channels. You can find everything on our website. Yeah, thank you very much for having me, Aldona. It was a real pleasure. And
No,
to the
thank
listeners,
you very much.
thank
Thank you. And I hope to see you next year in Madrid.
yeah,
With
absolutely. Let's do
everyone.
it.
Yes, please take all your team. You're all invited. We're gonna
I
make a
will bring
great
some
party
Spanish
here.
speakers. Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
yes, yes, yes. We're gonna make it in English, but then,
Okay.
of course, we will translate everything. But yes, you're of course invited, and it will be a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much. I wish you lots of success and speak to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Same to you, Aldona. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.